Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Sunday everybody. We have several important economic updates from this week which we need to take note of before we move into next week, so this is an extra episode coming out today. According to a new report by the National Institution for Finance and Development published this week, China's official debt to GDP ratio climbed to a new record high in 2023 despite the slow pace of borrowing, quote, reflecting the economy's weakening growth, end quote. The macro leverage ratio rose to 287.8% in 2023, 13.5 percentage points higher than a year ago. Some commentators believe the real ratio could be much higher, well over 300%, but even the official rate and trend is concerning. According to the report, the expansion of the overall leverage ratio has outpaced the pace of borrowing. The debt ratio held by households rose 1.3 percentage points to 63.5%, while that of non-financial corporations rose 6.9 percentage points to 168.4%. The government debt ratio, meanwhile, expanded 5.3 percentage points to 55.9%. Zhang Zhiwei, chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management Limited, writing in a note to clients, explained that the fact that the nominal GDP growth is lower than real GDP growth, quote, suggests China is likely growing below its potential growth. More supportive fiscal and monetary policies would help China to restore its growth potential, end quote. Other analysts argue the opposite, saying that this indicates that Chinese growth is still being driven by high levels of unproductive overinvestment, causing debt to climb faster than debt servicing capacity. Meanwhile, according to official data published on Friday by the People's Bank of China, China's central bank, China's outstanding personal mortgage loans edged down 1.6% in 2023, marking the first annual decline in nearly 2 decades. At the end of 2023, the country's outstanding personal mortgage loans totaled 38.17 trillion yuan, 5.4 trillion US dollars, down from 38.8 trillion yuan at the end of 2022. From 2004 through 2021, China's outstanding personal mortgage loans maintained double-digit growth in every single quarter before the end of 2022, when the growth rate slowed to 1.2%. Chinese financial media outlet Yicai writes on Saturday that the decline can be largely attributed to the protracted property market downturn and home buyers repaying their mortgage loans in advance. Of course, this is not surprising to anyone. Finally, for the economy, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin, in a long-form report published over the weekend, writes that China's tourism industry has been showing mixed signs of recovery following a long, bleak winter, as the so-called revenge travel rebound of the immediate post-pandemic period in 2023 was more short-lived than anticipated, with many domestic tourists opting to travel on a budget. Domestic trips made during the 8-day Golden Week holiday in October, the outlet explains, reached 226 million and recorded a modest 4.1% pickup from the pre-pandemic levels during the same holiday period in 2019. But much slower than the 19% recorded during the Labor Day holiday in May, according to data released by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Quote, the more robust recovery seen in the first half of the year was partly due to pent-up demand among consumers, but the level of spending was beyond consumers' actual budgets. The momentum was not sustained in the second half of the year. The sector is counting on the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday to further boost the recovery. Chinese travellers are expected to make a potential record high of around 80 million plane trips between January 26th and March 5th, or around 2 million trips each day on average. End quote. Next up, why suddenly are more foreigners leaving China? If you're enjoying today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing all helps for the channel. And for anyone who can go that extra mile and help me keep China Update financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is a lot of work, but all your support are all incredible sources of motivation. So thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Many foreigners left China during the 3 long years of zero COVID, but there was a small group of us that stayed in the country during the entire period. However, now, 12 months after opening back up, some of those who stuck through the tough COVID days are deciding, sometimes after many years of life in China, to leave. What is causing this exodus now? Sylvia Ma of Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post published a great report this week looking at this very question. I can say that the several anecdotal stories presented in the article are very much consistent with my own experience in the country and what I've heard from those around me. We end today's video by examining some of this article, which we are now quoting selected excerpts from directly. Foreigners living in China who stuck it out through 3 years of strict COVID controls have spoken about why they finally decided to leave the country last year, despite efforts to reopen to the outside world. Some spoke of increasing wariness, even hostility towards foreigners, while others said they were worried about a repeat of their lockdown experiences. For Sophie Redding, a British PE teacher at an international school in Wuhan, the city where the coronavirus was first detected, multiple factors played a part in her decision to return to Britain last month. Her partner, who was also in Wuhan, encountered visa problems, and she started to feel that the city she once regarded as home had become less welcoming. All of a sudden, strangers would start telling me to go back to my country. People would see me in a lift and wait for the next one. When Didi, a ride-hailing app, drivers I ordered arrived and realized I was a foreigner, they refused to take me, the 30-year-old said. Redding said things had eased after the pandemic, but her experience had left her with the feeling of being treated as an outsider. I still have loads of fantastic friends in Wuhan and across China. That's why I stayed so long. But all those small outlier conversations and interactions kind of wear you down, and it started to weigh off against all the great things about living in China, she said. In the decade leading up to November 2020, the first year of the pandemic, the number of foreigners living in Shanghai fell by more than 20% to 164,000 and by 40% in Beijing to 63,000, according to China's National Bureau of Statistics. Although these are the latest available figures, 2 more years of strict pandemic controls are expected to have led to more foreign residents leaving. Redding is not the only China-based foreigner to sense an increasing chilliness towards outsiders. James Champion, a British translator and proofreader who left China in July, said he sensed a subtle shift in Chinese people's attitudes and found it was becoming harder to make new friends. It wasn't as easy to strike up conversations, and there seemed to be a subtle hesitation from some locals, perhaps reflecting a growing awareness of geopolitical tensions, he said. Other scars from the zero-COVID era continue to linger. One Russian-born art teacher from the United States who left Shanghai after 13 years said her decision to return to America was largely driven by concerns that the authorities could again impose strict controls on people's movements and activities. People are afraid to repeat the same experience. No one wants to stay away from their family for 3 years. That's a long time. Who knows if there'll be another COVID, she said. James Zinnerman, a partner at an international law firm and former chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in China, said the factors behind individual departures, which he described as a combination of a weak economy, compliance risks, and geopolitical tensions, were also driving away businesses. He said, while China is potentially a large and attractive consumer market, foreign businesses rethinking whether to remain or expand in the market as a result of a host of geopolitical interests. He added, separate from geopolitical tensions, foreign business may have lost much faith in Beijing's ability to manage the business environment and economy, ranging from an unworkable reaction to the pandemic by putting into place unreasonable restrictions that adversely affected supply chains, an environment where an emphasis on national security overrides common sense, and an inability to address forward trends in China's economy, such as the real property meltdown that remains in free fall. Xi Jinping recently said Beijing was ready to invite 50,000 young Americans to join exchange and study programs over the next 5 years, but this follows a dramatic fall of more than 98% in the number of American students in the country. The number plummeted from 11,639 in the 2018 through 19 academic year to just 211 in 2021 through 2022, according to the Institute of International Education's Open Doors database. There has been an increasing focus on the number of students from developing countries coming to China, but many of these foreign graduates struggle to find a job that will allow them to stay. After graduation, my life became a hassle. The requirements of getting a work permit are not very attainable as a new graduate and as a Nigerian, said Annie, 22. Here ends the direct quote and today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a great Sunday, and I will see you all tomorrow.